Welcome to the Academic Woman Amplified podcast. I'm your host, Kathy Mazak, tenured full professor, mom of three, and firm believer that the culture of academia needs to change radically. Women are revolutionizing academia within institutions that were not built for us. If you're ready to reject the culture of overwork, kick guilt and overwhelm to the curb, and amplify your voice to make a real impact on your field without breaking down or burning out, you're in the right place. And it all starts with writing. Let's go. You all know that I'm a big podcast fan. And the other day I was listening to one of my favorites, which is called How I Built This with Guy Raz. Yes, it's another NPR podcast. I'm kind of addicted to all of them. And I heard the story of Aishetu Dozie of Bossy Cosmetics. And when she was talking about her story, it sounded so much like a post-tenure story that I wanted to share some of that with you and talk about a theme that came up during that interview that really resonated with the kind of decisions that we need to make as academics. Okay, so Aishetu Dozie was working as an investment banker. She was, achieving really high levels in her career. And then her doctor told her that if she kept going at that pace, she was going to have a stroke. And she actually was hospitalized for a panic attack that she thought was a heart attack. And it was at that moment where she kind of had this revelation that there was no way she was going to be able to keep up her investment banker pace, that it was literally going to kill her. Sometimes, and in the interview with Guy Raz, they call this the quote unquote golden handcuffs, right? Like you have achieved a stable job with a good salary. You are working too hard at very high levels that to the outside world, it looks like you've achieved all of this success. But the way that you have to work to maintain where you're at is literally harming your health. And that's the golden handcuffs thing, right? Is at least for her as an investment banker, she was making like really good money, but it was like being handcuffed to this 24/7 job. And the making really good money part might not really resonate that much with us as academics, right? But the being in a job where everyone looking in from the outside says, oh, well, she's achieved what she wants to achieve. She has the tenure track job, for example. She has tenure, like she has made it, right? That puts us in a position that, is similar to Aishetu Dozie, where maybe we are working so hard and so much that we are compromising our own health. And from the outside world, it looks like success, but on the inside what it actually feels like, which is like you're having a panic attack. So one of the things that came up in this interview that I was listening to on the podcast that was the difference between something being dangerous and being scary. So it feels very scary to make a change in your life like Aishetu Dozie had to make when she decided to leave her investment banking career and found Bossy Cosmetics. That's scary. And it also seems dangerous. Like why would you leave something that was bringing you good money and that you were kind of at the top of your field? Why would you leave that? Isn't it dangerous to kind of pull the rug out from under yourself that way? But actually what came out in this interview is that it would have been more dangerous for her to stay. It would have been more dangerous for her to stay because her health would have been compromised, right? She would eventually have had a stroke. She would have eventually have had a heart attack. That's what her doctor told her. So although it's scary to leave, it's not actually dangerous to leave. It's dangerous to stay. So this idea of something being dangerous versus scary was something that I wanted to come and talk to you all on the podcast about. I work with a lot of women on the tenure track in our high-level programs, Amplify and Elevate, and particularly with our Elevate cohort, which is our post-tenure program. We are talking about women who have achieved a very high level of success in their careers, who have been achieving that success for many years. And they come into our program often because despite their success, they feel like there's something more. They feel like, I want more than this. I worked too hard to get paid this little. I've worked too hard to still feel like I'm on a treadmill running a couple clicks too fast. And so they come into Elevate because they're looking to create something more for themselves. And often they think what that more is going to be a new project or going for full or pursuing a deanship or something that falls into the realm of safe within their world and usually within their current institutions. But what happens during the course of all the work we do together in the program is that they start to realize that the situation that they are in is dangerous, that they are headed towards burnout, that they are headed towards, maybe feeling like they should walk from academia completely. The level of frustration and overwork is so, so high. And it's important to recognize that if you are feeling like that, it's actually more dangerous to stay in that situation that could lead you to have a breakdown or that could lead you to just feeling so in love, fallen out of love with your career, that it makes you not able to realize your full potential and create the thing that you really want to create in the world. That's where the danger is. We think danger is making a change. So let me talk about the kinds of changes that need to be made by women post-tenure. So if you don't know what is causing you to feel frustration post-tenure, the first thing you need to do is articulate that. Figure out what the heck it is that's really driving you nuts. And you'll find perhaps that the thing that is causing you frustration, you might find that it feels like you can't change that thing. It would feel dangerous to change the thing. Okay, let me give you an example. We had a client inside of our Elevate program who wanted to go up for promotion, and her department did not support her promotion. Okay. She had been working, giving so much to her department, really a lot of service work, admin work. And she felt like, well, it's time that I'm recognized monetarily and also through the promotional rank. It's time that I'm recognized for all of this work that I do. She goes to, apply for the promotion, and her department shuts her down, says, nope, you're not ready. So it might feel like the dangerous thing to do is go against the department's wishes, right? That might feel like the dangerous thing to do, but actually it's the scary thing to do. But the dangerous thing to do would be to not make that move, would be to keep yourself constrained in that same position and the same circumstances that are causing you frustration and pain. So again, feels dangerous to go against what your department says, but actually the dangerous thing is to not do it. It's scary to go against what the department said, but fear we can deal with, right? We want to take on the kind of scary that is, or I should say this, post-tenure and whenever you're trying to up-level yourself, things are going to be scary. It's going to feel scary to make changes. It's going to feel scary to step up and say, nope, I deserve this. There should be fear around that because as women, we are socialized to stay small, be quiet, and are told by society very clearly that if you play too big, if you are too loud, if you claim too much, that there are consequences for you, right? So it makes sense that that feels scary. But the danger is in staying the same. So what happened to this client was that she talked to the dean, and the dean said, actually, I support your promotion case. And so she was able to go through the promotion process, went above her department, supported by her dean. And that was a great, great learning process for her. Now, I will be 100% honest and say that this client did not get the promotion on that first try. However, she got to go through the whole experience of going up for promotion. She got feedback, and she felt in the end like it was a great experience because she got over her fear and she did something, that said to her department, hey, I deserve this. And that actually was a very powerful move to make. Hey there, listeners. I'm interrupting, myself to bring you this note about our Elevate program. Now, we are enrolling people for Elevate now. So I just want to give you a little heads up about what the program's about and what we're offering for people who join now. Elevate is a program for post-tenure people who are ready to up-level their career. Now, what does up-level mean? Up-level means that there's something bigger out there for you. You know that you didn't work this hard, this long to be feeling the same way you felt pre-tenure or worse in your job. You've got big goals, you've got world-changing ideas, and you're ready to make your academic life serve you instead of you feeling like you are in service of your academic life. Now, Elevate is a program that we have decided we are only running once in 2021. That's right. We're only running Elevate one time in 2021, and it's going to start in February and end in July. But here's the thing. Why are we enrolling for a program that starts in February? Why are we doing that now? Well, Elevate's a 6-month program, and during the 6 months, you get 6 key workshops that are going to help you create a plan and enact it for whatever that next level thing is for you post-tenure. And you get one-on-ones every month and group coaching every month. It's a very hands-on program, and you work very closely with our coaches. And that's why people in Elevate have great success in just a 6-month short time period. But we're enrolling now during October for a February program because there are people who are ready to get started now. And actually, we're already filling spots. So if you want to get in, here's the juicy stuff that you get when you enroll now. You get 2 extra one-on-one calls to use during 2020. So instead of having 6 calls, you get 8. And you can use them before the new year to solve your writing problems now, to get yourself to the end of 2020 in a hopeful and potentially more happy way, definitely a more supported way. Now, you also can come into our community and start to have the benefits of our high-level Amplify and Elevate community. And those include our monthly focused peer review sessions, office hours with me and my coaches, special workshops and planning sessions, and our January retreat. We're doing a 2.5-day virtual retreat that you must join Elevate during 2020 to be able to go to. It's going to be amazing. Our virtual retreats, actually, we've gotten pretty good at them this year, and people really, really love them. And you will find it to be a great way to start off 2020. So If you want to know more about Elevate, I encourage you to find the link to the application in the show notes and apply. By applying, you will start through our process, which is a process of actually vetting people. Like, we are very selective with this program. So when you apply, you'll get started during that process. You'll get all your questions answered. We'll get our questions answered about you, and you can get started right away. Now, I want to give you a little exercise to do. If you are post-tenure or really anywhere in your career and you're feeling a lot of frustration, and what I mean by frustration is that you're not exactly waking up and feeling like jazzed to go to work every day. You're not feeling kind of a cup-filling feeling from work, or maybe you have moments that feel that way, but they're not the norm. They're rare. What other things lead to frustration? So yeah, that kind of feeling like you're not motivated, right? Like a lot of people talk about, especially when it comes to their writing, they feel like I'm just unmotivated to pick up this project and finish it. So that's another kind of sign of frustration, also a sign that you need to rest. So if you're feeling frustration around your work, if you're feeling almost like an itch, right? Like an itch that's like, ugh, I need to make a change. I need to do a thing. I need to do a something because this needs to get better in terms of my day-to-day life, happiness, and impact that I feel like I'm making on the world. I want you to do this little exercise. So I've got 3 journal prompty kind of questions for you. If you're listening to me while you're driving or taking a walk, it might be good enough just to think about these. You might pause the podcast while you do so. But I really do recommend that at some point you get to pen and paper and sit down and really write out your answers to these 3 questions. Okay, so the question number 1, I alluded to this earlier in the podcast. You need to figure out exactly what you're frustrated with. Okay, so the question is, what exactly am I frustrated with? Journal about this. Articulate it clearly. Make a list. Okay, what you want to do is you want to put your finger on the thing that is making you feel like, I don't know if I should stay in this job. I don't know if this is for me. I don't know if I can keep up this pace. Okay. So what you want to do is get to the point where you're actually writing down a list of the actual thing that's making you feel that way. Because if not, it's like a general malaise, right? It's just like a general like feeling down or dragging. And it's hard to if you don't take some time and really articulate this, it's very hard, especially, if you're listening in real time. The historical moment is draining right now. So you need to be able to really take some time and separate out. Am I feeling tired and exhausted and overwhelmed and questioning my career choices because we're in the middle of a global pandemic and we're about to have an election and everything seems like a mess? And can I separate that out from other things that might be causing me frustration? So for post-tenure women, a lot of what I hear is I'm always putting out fires, or I'm taking so much of my day goes to other people's problems. I never get that space in my schedule to really think about my own problems and what I want to do and what I want to create. So if you're feeling that way, why? How did it come to be that you are taking on other people's problems? What kind of fires are you putting out? What has caused those metaphorical fires? Okay. So you really want to take some time with this question. What's causing me frustration? What's causing me angst and anxiety in my career right now? Because here's something, we'll get to the next 2 things, which are a path to solving those problems. But I do want to just give you permission to admit this, right? Admit that this is not perfect. I'm overwhelmed. I need to rest. You are allowed to feel this way. I think a lot of times, especially women on the tenure track, we feel like we are so fortunate to have the tenure track job. We're so fortunate to have gotten tenure within this current, academic climate that we feel sometimes like, well, I shouldn't complain. But actually, that feeling of like, I'm not, something needs to change is a feeling that, especially at the mid-career point, you want to listen to that. Because if you don't, you will be on a path to burnout or health problems, right? So I really want you to listen to that inner voice that's saying, this isn't right, this isn't good enough yet, because you deserve your career to be great, not just good enough. Okay. So once you've got your list of like what really, if you can do some journaling to get to the root cause of the things you're frustrated with, which may be more than one thing, then question 2 is, can I change this thing that I'm frustrated with? All right. So here's what happens a lot of the time when we think about making a change, or when we think about what we are in control of changing and what we're not in control of changing. So again, let's go back to the dangerous versus scary idea. Like lots of things that come up in our frustrations, like let's say, for example, we'll take a concrete example. Let's say that you've been given admin work without release time from your teaching or without sufficient compensation or any compensation. And this is something that happens a lot. It's like a snowball effect that as you go through your career, you keep picking up more and more admin tasks, and it's like creep. I call it like activities creep. Like things come onto your plate and you're like, how did I get in charge of this too? And so for example, for me, I was the chair of the graduate committee. And what that meant was that I coordinated the graduate program. We had a master's in English education, and the program would admit, sometimes we would get 30 or 40 applications in a high season, and we would admit, 20 students. So we had a lot of grad students, at one time, and they were most of them would be teaching first year classes, and we would be supervising them. And there's a lot of things that our graduate committee did. It really ran the graduate program. And for a brief shining semester, I was in charge of the graduate program. I was the chair of the grad committee. I was managing that program. And I had a course release. So at my university, which is a teaching-heavy university, we have a 4-4 load. And I took on the chairship with the idea that, I was getting a course release that came with that. So that gave me 25% of my time, roughly, to do that program management. The second semester that I was in that position, the university cut that course release. And so all of a sudden, I had all of these extra things on my plate, still was supposed to be teaching 4-4, and all of this admin work. And it really took a ton of time. It was a lot. It was, admissions and supervision and going through course proposals for new courses and all kinds of stuff. It was a lot of work. So that's an example of how things can kind of creep onto your plate. And you might think, and I'll tell you exactly what I did when that happened. So for example, like if I'm using our example, that was something that I was very frustrated with. And if I ask myself question 2, which is, can I change this thing I'm frustrated with? Well, I can't change the fact that the university cut the course release. We tried, our chair asked, and we were told no repeatedly. So I had to make a decision. I either had to step down or I had to craft that position in a new way so that it was manageable without the course release. And what I ended up doing, and we did this together as a committee, is that we said to the chair, we're like, well, if we don't have the course release, then these are the tasks we can do. And these other tasks, which had fallen onto the chair of the grad committee, we cannot do those anymore. And he ended up having to suck up those tasks. So it was about imposing a boundary. Was it scary to do that? Yes. I was afraid I was going to look like a jerk in front of people? Absolutely. But also I knew that it was more dangerous to just keep on keeping on than it was to put a boundary. The boundary putting was scary. The staying with all the tasks was dangerous. So I want you to think about okay, when you've identified that frustrating thing, can you change it? Now, it might feel scary to change it. It might be dangerous to not change it. And also, there are going to be some things that you might not be able to change. For example, one of the things, with me was that I was frustrated with the administration because we were being squeezed and squeezed and cut and cut and cut so that it became like not a very fun place to work anymore. Now, I would love to think that as one person, I could change the administration, but one, it wasn't a task I was willing to take on. Although I think that there are other ambitious women who the admin is perfect for them. And so it is what they should do, is change the institution from the admin side. But that wasn't for me. You have to think, like, can I change this thing? And for me, like, truth be told, like when I realized how big the frustration was, how big the admin problem was, I decided to leave. I was like, I'm out. And getting a new job in a different university was not an option for me. My husband is very committed to his work here in Puerto Rico, and I was not willing to put up with what was happening at our university, but I wasn't going to go and like move our family to someplace else. And so now I'm a writing coach and I created this thing. And that's why you're listening to this podcast. So anyway, to kind of roll back to the question is, can I change the thing that I'm frustrated with? And one of the things that you might need to do as you're thinking about that question is quiet your inner voice. Quiet your inner voice, the inner voice that says, I couldn't possibly push back against those additional tasks that were added to my plate. So there's going to be some frustrations that you actually can change or take action on, but it's going to be scary, but you probably should do it anyway because keeping things the way they are is dangerous. And there may be things that you absolutely can't change. And that's where you need to evaluate, do I want to stay in this position or do I want to look for a new job? Do I want to switch positions? Is there some way that I could make a move in my career to eliminate this thing that's an obstacle, preventing me from realizing my big dreams and goals? Okay, so question 1 was, what exactly am I frustrated with? Question 2 is, can I change the thing I'm frustrated with? And question 3 is, what have I created? And what am I creating? Okay, so we had a previous episode that was called You Are Not the Container. And so if you'd like to go back and listen to that, I'm referring to that episode here. You are not your university. So the work of a professor is the work of creation. You are bringing something into the world that is uniquely yours, a contribution to your field, a way of thinking about something that's new. And it is a 30-year journey of creation. That happens perhaps for you inside the walls of a university, but it is not equal to a university. Okay, so your job as a professor is not, I'm going to teach these 4 courses, I'm going to sit on these 2 committees, I'm going to publish these 5 things, and I'm going to advise these 10 students. That's not your work. That is the way you realize your work within the institution. Your work is your big knowledge-making thing that you are birthing into this world. So what is that? What is the thing that you are creating? What are you in the act of creating? And remember, it's a process, right? That happens over the course of the journey. Because if you can identify that, and this is exactly the work that we do in Elevate, if you can identify what that thing is, then the container stops mattering so much. And then you are free to decide whether you are going to continue to offer your creation to the world within the container of the institution where you are right now, or through a different container, or by proactively reshaping the way that you are interacting with your university. There's so many options for living out that same purpose within different containers. And you have more power than you think to reshape the container. Okay, so those are 3 big questions. I know it's a lot. So you're going to ask yourself, what exactly am I frustrated with? Number 2, can I change this thing that I'm frustrated with? And number 3, what am I creating? What am I creating? And when you've answered, when you've done this work, then you can see like, oh, I'm feeling this everyday frustration and it feels like it's out of my control. But now that I've really analyzed it, I realize it is within my control to a certain extent. And I can take X, Y, and Z actions to make my situation better. Or this is not under my control. And so I can take X, Y, and Z actions to change my situation, including getting a new job, getting promoted, going into admin, renegotiating, whatever it is, you can make the move to shape your career. I hope this exercise and this episode reminds you the difference between dangerous and scary, right? Staying still, just living with the frustrations and the pressures and the overwork and the anxiety and the stress is actually dangerous. Making a move is scary, but actually not dangerous. You are protecting yourself by facing your fears and making a move to change your situation. So go do it. I'm cheering for you. Have a great day. Bye. Thank you so much for spending your valuable time loving on yourself and your writing by listening to this episode. If you're feeling pulled in 1,000 directions and can't seem to carve out time to write, I've got a solution for you. Go grab my 10 ways to make time to write cheat sheet. Just go to kathymazak.com/podcast-time to learn my best quick tips for putting writing at the center of your career where it belongs. We'll link that up in the show notes. Just go to kathymazak.com/podcast-time.